If there's something 2023 needs, it's more toxic men, so Netflix has delivered with a new season of You. This season seems to be a bit different, with an emphasis on a whodunit murder mystery and someone seemingly stalking Joe. We're going to be taking a deep dive into the latest trailer and some of the clues it gives us on what to expect. If you haven't seen the trailer, I've left a link to it in the description below, but before we begin, make sure to like and subscribe. I'm planning on covering both parts 1 and 2. Last but not least, I may not cover every show you're watching, but when I do, it's pretty cool. Our first shot of Joe at a party in England, who now goes by the alias Professor Jonathan Moore.
Professor Jonathan Moore. Why are you here?
If you recall, we last saw him in Paris at the end of Season 3 in the pursuit of Marianne. His alias there was Nick, as we'll see a barista call out his name.
Nick?
Throughout the trailer, every shot featuring Marianne is colored in these muted tones, suggesting everything that happens with her is a flashback. So something happens between Joe and Marianne that forces him to flee Paris and make the trek to London. It's unknown whether or not the first episode will set this up, or if these flashbacks will be peppered throughout the season. Now look at Joe here. He's not looking so hot, covered in sweat, partaking in shots with some of London's upper socialite class. The way the camera spins, it's almost as though Joe might be drugged, or it could simply be the effects of alcohol. This green shot here could even be absinthe. Here we meet Kate, who isn't too happy when she asks him why he's here. He's alongside Phoebe and Gemma, who joke if he's here because he killed someone or got his heart broken. Maybe a bit of both. In another flashback, we see Joe in his trademark baseball cap keeping tabs on Marianne at a train station.
You're a murderer, Joe.
You're wrong about me.
It looks like Joe wants to win her back and prove to her he's not a murderer. Remember, it was Joe who killed her ex-husband and framed Love for his murder. Here's Joe at some sort of upscale event, perhaps an exhibit of sorts at a museum. This may be Kate's event, as she's said to be an art gallery director. On the red carpet, Joe tries not to catch the lens of the paparazzi as we see Phoebe and Adam having their photos taken, so perhaps they are some kind of celebrity couple or socialites. Joe has taken up a new job as professor. My guess is he's teaching literature. We get a brief shot of Nadia, who appears to be a student who might be a little too hot for teacher. We're not quite sure, but Joe has fallen into this elite social group which he calls the most insane damaged people on earth and a circle of privileged douchebags. Here we can see them celebrating in 1920s dress and a dude casually doing cocaine on the right. They even seem to be involved in some weird medieval games. Joe does give us a little clue here,
but I do miss having someone out there,
hinting that Marianne is out of the picture. Here we see Kate in the apartment across from Joe's. Could she be hostile towards Joe because she senses something off with him, or is she merely trying to protect her well-to-do friends who are often exploited? Joe tries to stifle his obsession for Kate, but when he sees her practicing her DJ skills across the lane, it's gonna be pretty hard for him. About halfway through the trailer, we get to what seems to be the main plot of the season, the Eat the Rich killer who has murdered a second member of this elite group. This mansion from the news report seems to be the same one Joe will spend with his group of friends. One of his students says,
"They're calling him the Eat the Rich killer."
But I actually think this is a misdirect. There are no clues yet that point to the killer being a man. Here it appears Joe receives a text from this Eat the Rich killer saying, "Nice jacket, brown's your color." Now, Peach and Beck both attended Brown University, but that's probably just a coincidence. The phrasing here also suggests that this is someone who knows Joe. Joe confides in Kate, suggesting that one of her friends is the killer, but she tells him to stop playing shitty Sherlock. I'll share my choices of who I think the murderer is near the end of the video. More paparazzi as Phoebe and Adam attend what I believe to be a funeral, perhaps of one of the victims. It looks like the professor is getting some help from Nadia here, who says,
"All motives always boil down to sex, money, or revenge."
Which ties into Joe stumbling upon a wall filled with newspaper articles about his past kills from season 1 to 3. This person knows all about him, even texting him, "Now do I have your attention?" A random shot of Joe running through the forest, followed by Marianne running through that market from the beginning, likely having spotted Joe. We also have Joe following what appears to be Kate, and judging by their clothes, I think he's following her after the funeral to get a drink at that bar. Joe doing what he does, creeping, and a garrote wire hidden within a book. This looks like it takes place at the huge castle mansion, the same one where a body was found, but I'm not convinced it was Joe who did it, considering the news report we saw earlier attributed attributed it to the Eat the Rich killer, which I don't believe he is. This shot where Joe scrambles to take off all the newspaper clippings of him I found very interesting. For one, it appears this occurs at night, while the clip where he first sees them is during the day. He's kept these clippings up there for some time, but something has occurred, so he needs to get rid of them ASAP. Perhaps someone is coming over. This invitation, which states your presence is requested at a night to die for, I think is a fake out. It's likely an invitation to that 1920s murder mystery we saw earlier. We see more of our potential killers at this funeral, and a better shot of this guy named Malcolm. He's the guy that brings Joe into his circle of friends and also happens to be a literature professor himself. Perhaps he's the one who got Joe that job. More suspicious shots of the various friends, and check out these two shots of a woman in wool throwing red paint onto a painting. This is followed by Simon, a member of the friend group, throwing some paint as well. This appears to be his own work of art that he's destroying, since in the season 4 promotional material we can see him here painting the same picture of a cat. Joe and another member of this group of friends, Reese, are also watching this transpire, and knowing Kate runs these art exhibitions, it might be something that was planned. Accompanying the melodic sounds of a chainsaw is Joe with protective eyeglasses, hinting that he's sawing a body. The lighting here even suggests we could be seeing another cage. This is a great shot of Joe removing a knife from a body. This is interesting because although the knife and body are covered in blood, Joe is completely clean, suggesting that he's not the murderer, and if you pay close attention to the mirror in the background, it's the same one found in that room where Joe finds all the newspaper clippings. This could mean that this body was killed by the Eat the Rich killer, either as a warning to Joe or to frame him. I don't know about you, but this looks like Phoebe hitting on Joe. Phoebe is supposed to be with Adam, so if Adam finds out about this, he might want to kill Joe for revenge, but my guess is that this is all a red herring. Adam even says,
You steal my spotlight, and I murder you.
A shot of Joe coming across something very disturbing, perhaps a dead body, and the final shot, that of our group of potential killers. Now I want to briefly go over my top suspects on who this killer is. Tied for first place is Reese and Malcolm. Malcolm we barely see in the trailer, which could mean he gets killed off early, but he is the one who works with Joe, introduces him to the friend group, and is sort of the catalyst for this season it seems. Reese, on the other hand, has a really interesting backstory where he grew up poor, wrote this amazing memoir, gained fame, and became a politician. So he could have a motive for killing the rich as revenge for his childhood. He would know firsthand what it's like to be looked down upon by the rich. My number 2 pick is someone not seen in the trailer, Joe's half-brother Jakey. We've had flashbacks of him throughout the seasons. It would be pretty easy for the writers to come up for a reason he was able to track his brother and give him motive to taunt him like this. Number 3 is Kate. At first she's cold towards Joe, but that seems to eventually change as Joe opens up to her and trusts her enough to suggest one of their friend group is the killer. In a lot of these whodunit mysteries, it's often the person who is the most trustworthy and helpful that ends up being the bad guy. Finally, and this is totally out there, is that there are 2 killers working independently of one another, but the press and we the audience believe it to be one. Now we still have a month before the show releases. I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below of what you think will happen. Thanks for watching everyone, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ThinkStoryYT. Until next time, remember...